I decluttered 1,000 items from my home in a 30-day period, and in this video I'm going to be showing you everything that I decluttered over that space of time, and also just spending some time reflecting on the journey, on the process, everything I learned, the things that I'm going to be taking away into my decluttering journey going forward, but also a bit of a wider reflection on my decluttering so far. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I started decluttering in earnest in December of last year. So we're coming up for 8 months of decluttering, and my decluttering journey though has been longer than that. I started trying to tackle my house when my firstborn was about 1 year old. I think I really started to try to declutter the house. He is now, or just turned 7, but over that course of time, I've had 2 more babies, house extension, COVID, a new job, all the things that life throws at you, which has meant that just when I seem to get on top of the clutter, or start to get on top of the clutter in the house, then more clutter arrives. My time is even more stretched, especially during those early years with little children. So my kids are now aged 7, 5 and 2. My 2-year-old will be 3 in October. And I feel like we are, getting out of the trenches of early parenting now. The kids are becoming, I want to say becoming more independent, but we get pockets of time where we can tackle some projects around the house. It is still very intense. I work 4 long days a week as a lawyer in a very intense, stressful job, which I love, but that combined with the kids mean that it is difficult to find time for anything else. But I realised in December of last year that the stuff in the house was starting to negatively impact my life, the kids' life, like family life in general. It was causing me to become more stressed. I was losing things. It was causing a lot of upset. And things were really brought to a head when I lost my watch, which was a 40th birthday present from my husband. It is, like, after my engagement ring, the most valuable thing that I own. It's lovely and I just loved it. And I definitely felt like at the time I can't be trusted with nice things. It was a feeling and something which I said several times to my husband, like, I don't want to own a nice thing again because I can't be trusted unless I'm wearing it 24/7, like my engagement ring. Then it is at risk in this house with the way I lead my life and the chaoticness of it. And that was really upsetting for me, just on so many levels. And I realised I just had to tackle the house, even though December is like the worst time to take on a big project. But I committed to decluttering every single day. And I pretty much did. I documented it here on my YouTube channel, and that December made such a difference, but also it started that trajectory to tackling the house. And I had been doing lots of mini declutters, setting timers, finding pockets of time where I could tackle the house. And I had some months where I did less decluttering than I would have liked because work was intense, or things were going on, we were on holiday, whatever it may be, but I got straight back on it. So with this particular challenge, I got to the point where whilst I was doing the regular declutters, I felt like that was just keeping me on top of the things that I'd already decluttered. It wasn't making any more of a dent in the stuff in the house. And I definitely felt like there was more to do. More stuff had to leave the house in order for it to feel more peaceful, for me to feel more peaceful. And so I set myself a challenge of decluttering 1,000 items in 30 days. I saw a video by another creator where she had decluttered 1,000 items in a couple of weeks. And I thought, well, 2 weeks would be a definite stretch with work, kids and other commitments. But 30 days, whilst being a stretch, felt like I could do that. And I do like a little bit of pressure on me sometimes to get things done. I definitely believe in setting yourself goals which feel a little bit unachievable. And this felt like it was a little bit unachievable, but in a good way, and it was exciting. And I really was excited to get stuck into this challenge. I worked out how many items I would need to declutter from the house every single day in order to make the challenge, and then I set myself the goal of decluttering a minimum of 50 items a day, because I knew the realities of life would mean there would be days when I would not be able to do any decluttering, and rather than get behind on those days, I wanted to make sure that I was always ahead, and this worked really well. That said, by the time I got halfway through the challenge, I realised that I was slipping behind. I'd had more days where I wasn't able to do any decluttering than I had originally envisaged. And that's just life when you've got 3 young children and a demanding job and family to care for as well. My mother-in-law had had a hip replacement, and my husband was taking in turns with his siblings to go and help her out. And my parents, my mother and my stepdad, hadn't been very well. My stepdad is disabled, and so I ended up spending a little bit more time with them than I had originally envisaged. But are we not so fortunate, so lucky to be able to drop things and go and help out our family, to be able to work from home around those family commitments, the things that we want to do for our family? I felt very privileged actually during this time to be able to do those things. I thought of my friends that were in medical jobs, for example, my friends who are nurses and doctors and teachers who cannot work flexibly, and in order to be with family have to make really difficult decisions to take time out of work in order to be with family when they want to be, and then feel guilty that they have done so. And I didn't have that. The things that I had to rearrange were things that I had taken on, like decluttering challenges and some, but kind of, nice to have things with friends that could be done at other times. Now, don't get me wrong, previous me would have felt a little bit hard done by to have to change up my schedule when I wanted to do something, but I'm definitely learning as I'm getting older how precious time is and how precious time with family is, and I never want to regret spending time with family. So all that said, I got to a point halfway through the challenge where I really had to pull out the stops in order to meet my goal. And it was a goal I was really determined to meet. So I set out firstly by listing the rooms or areas of the house where I wanted to spend time decluttering, because what I didn't want to do was spend every day of this challenge sweeping through the entire house. I definitely had points during this challenge where I did kind of sweep through the house, especially because as the challenge went on, I was noticing more and more things. So I'd be in a room and think, oh, there's 1 or 2 things I missed when I was doing the living room. So I could do those in a bit of a sweep at 1 or 2 points. But mostly I tried to concentrate on rooms or on specific items such as kids' books, which turned out to be a major category for us to declutter. I was shocked by how many kids' books we were able to declutter. And I think it's because as the boys are getting older, they are moving up with their book interests. We found we had some duplicates. There were categories of books that the kids just weren't that interested in. And I feel like they have read all of the books many, many, many times. And decluttering with kids as well was, whilst chaotic at times, I think really great. I found that by the end of the challenge, the kids were getting really good at making decisions to declutter items, particularly my eldest. My middle child still finds it a little tricky at times, but if we are decluttering together, my eldest is making, is being really decisive about what leaves the house, what he's not playing with anymore. I find that my middle child has a bit more confidence in making those decisions about letting things go. So previously I have found it really hard to declutter with the kids, as in to get them to make any decisions about their own things, especially toys. So I've always decluttered them for them. And then because I find toys really hard to declutter, I generally put them in bags or boxes in the loft, and then I will come back to them 6 months after I've put them there. And if the kids haven't asked for them, they haven't noticed that they're missing, then I will have the confidence to part with those things. And during this 1,000 item, I was going to say 1,000 day challenge, but oh my goodness, that would be a challenge and a half, wouldn't it? During this 1,000 item challenge, I didn't put anything in the loft to hold on to. So when it came to the toys, when it came to the kids' books, we made decisions and those things left the house. And talking of leaving the house, you definitely have to have an exit plan when it comes to decluttering this many items. And at times I felt like I didn't have an exit plan. So we got to the end of the challenge and I did have bags and boxes of things in the house where I had to do like a big charity shop run. And I did have one day eventually, about kind of 10 days after the challenge ended, I managed to carve out some time. I ran around the charity shops. I went to the local vets to give them a blanket. And then there were some other items I could put in clothing recycling and that sort of thing. So I managed to get the items sorted eventually. We do have a few items that need to go to our local tip. And they are in our outside storage unit waiting for us to book a slot to have some time to go to the tip. But largely we were able to recycle, give away items locally, rehome things, and I'm really passionate about doing that. It feels very wasteful to just be putting things in the bin. However, sometimes things do just need to be binned. And I think this is something I always struggle with. I currently have a load of items of Vinted. I did actually sell something on Vinted today, so go me. But it was an item that I had posted quite a long time ago. It has been some time since I've listed anything new on Vinted. And I find it hard when something has value and you know you could sell it, but you're struggling with the time to sell it. I find those decisions really tricky. And I think here for me, as part of like my next challenge of decluttering, it's, having made the decision to get rid of things from the house, they actually do need to go. So I'm going to set myself a time limit by which if I haven't sold things on Vinted or eBay or whatever it is, then they have to be donated to charity. And I think here the thing that helps me is knowing that when I donate something to charity, that it is going to a good cause. Somebody will love it, somebody will get a good bargain, and at the same time the charity gets some money whilst you get the item out of your home and you get the space back and more peace in your life. So really it's a win-win-win all around. So that said, it's still tricky to make these decisions, but it is easier, I find, if you have somewhere you can donate items. So when it came to the kids' books, my daughter's nursery had just started a book share. So they had a book stand in their hallway lobby as you went in. And it was for lending books out. So you bought the books that you no longer wanted, and then other people could borrow them and bring them back. So a lending library. And I loved this idea because when I looked at books that had lots of memories, and the kids had really loved them, but they're not reading them anymore, I knew that they could all go to the little lending library and other children would adore them. My daughter borrowed Alice in Wonderland, and it's based on the Disney, movie. So it's got pictures in it from the Disney movie, and she absolutely adores this book. Having borrowed it from the lending library from nursery, I have to say, I am not sure she's ever going to be willing to part with it. But I don't feel too bad, given that we have given them just over 50 books, I believe it was, which is an amazing haul of books to leave the house. We do have a lot of books. It's definitely a big category in our house, and I love that for us. I always just loved reading as a kid. I would go through so many books, and I had a few favourites that I would read multiple times, but I had to say mostly I would read a book once, I would really enjoy it, and I would rarely read it again. I think it's different for kids of my kids' ages. They are more likely to read books multiple times. There'll be shorter books that they enjoy reading at bedtime, but they absolutely do have their favourites. And I noticed that, some books start to be asked for less frequently. And I think honestly, if I went through again now, I could probably pull out a few more books. It's interesting decluttering with toddlers, isn't it? But also I felt very guilty, I have to say, when I was decluttering with my youngest. So I have a Thursday off work, I don't work, and I spend the time with her. And the idea is to spend some quality time, but I felt like trying to squeeze into decluttering as well was taking away from that quality time. But when I looked back at this video, so this bear that she's holding has got a little vest on. We found the vest when we were decluttering this room. It was one that my eldest had done some sewing practice on, but he hadn't been using it for a long time. So I took the vest out, and my daughter, when she saw it, it was one of her vests from when she was a baby, and she just adored it. She grabbed this bear and wanted me to put the vest on the bear. So we put the vest on the bear, then the bear had a t-shirt on, and the t-shirt was off, and it was just the vest. And still weeks later now, this has become one of her favourite games. She regularly, if not every single night, asks for the vest to go on the bear. Then she'll say the bear needs a nappy change, and she'll unpop the bear, take him for his nappy change, and then he comes back and I help put the poppers back on, and she absolutely loves this game. So at the time I felt quite guilty, like, you know, here I am just doing decluttering instead of taking her to a park or taking her to soft play or doing something fun or going to the zoo, and instead we're decluttering. But at the same time, there she was finding a new game which she actually, you know, adored. She was trying on some of her clothes, she was chatting away to me, and that, you know, the whole time that I'm decluttering, I am obviously talking to her, we're having a good chat. If she wants to do something, I'm trying to be more relaxed about it, you know. Okay, maybe it, you know, stops me from what I'm doing for a little while, and we'll do a few little jobs together, but it's also really lovely to spend that time. And I think really important for the kids to see me decluttering, see what it actually takes to manage a house, because it's something which I struggled with growing up. My parents definitely struggled with stuff. They both came from more working class families, and my dad particularly coming from quite a disadvantaged background, where he didn't have a lot at all and left for the army. I think he actually left the army at 14 or 15. They had, back when he joined the army school. So you went into army school, you finished your last couple of years of school at army school, and then you went straight into the regular army from there. And that's what he did, so that he could leave home as early as he possibly could, because being at home was so difficult for him. It wasn't a nice, happy situation. It was a very hard situation. There wasn't a lot to go around. So when he met my mum and they set up a house together, they both came to the relationship with very little. And my dad had grown up with very little, had left the army with just a rucksack basically. And my mum would always tell the story about how my dad moved in with her, turned up with his motorbike and a sidecar with an empty fish tank in the sidecar and a rucksack inside. And when she said, when are you going to go and get all your stuff? How are you going to get it all? And he said, that is all my stuff. And that was it. That was what they had when they started life together. They had children very young. And, you know, I think when you look at your parents when you're younger and you look at them, you think that they know everything. And then as you get older, you start to realise all the, you know, that they're just human. They have had their own experiences. They came to, you know, marriage and raising children with their, you know, the life experiences that they had, the knowledge that they had, the abilities that they had as a result. And we're all still learning. So when they started to earn a little bit more money, have the means to buy anything, then, you know, those items I feel like became so precious compared to perhaps what they would have been if my parents had, you know, maybe if they'd had more when they were growing up, I don't know. But I also think it's a common of their age, of their time. People were, you know, my parents, my grandparents, my parents' parents had, you know, my granddad had served at the end of the Second World War. So, you know, they're coming into relationships post-war times. And really, nobody had anything. You know, everything was scarce. There was still food rationing when my grandparents married, and I think that all that you can see that filter through an impact when it comes to the view of possessions, of items, and the need for things, and not to be wasteful and to save everything. So if anything's going free or somebody doesn't want anything anymore, yes, I'll find a room for that, I'll find a home for that, I'll find a use for that, I'll pop it in my shed, I'll pop it in the back of the cupboard, and then things just languish there forevermore. So growing up, we definitely had a lot of stuff in the house, but I felt like the stuff was organised well. Like my mum spent a lot of time tidying up, putting things where they belonged, finding homes for things. But looking back, really, I think if she had less things, then hopefully, it would have taken her less time probably in order to keep the house as it was. But spaces that my dad had just for him, where he wasn't as good at keeping things tidy, which is actually really a surprise coming out of the army, because I feel like the army really instilled on you like being tidy and orderly. But that clearly skipped my dad entirely, or perhaps because he'd have to be so tidy and orderly in the army, that he like rebuffed that when it came to leaving the army, because his spaces, if we had a shed or a garage or whatever house we were in, his spaces were like unreal. They were just a sea of stuff, so much stuff that he would lose something and then he would have to go and buy it again. And I experienced that to some degree, and it's why I now own 3 running timers, because I went through a phase of losing these running timers, and then I'd buy another one, then I'd lose another one, and I ended up with 3. I have all 3 back now, and because sometimes I do misplace them even now, I have kept all 3. But I was at that point, I was losing things. I was losing things regularly. It was causing stress. It was taking time to leave the house. It was taking a long time to tidy up the house. So it's definitely a massive life lesson for me. And if you're watching this and you're in the trenches of little kids, babies and toddlers, and feeling overwhelmed at home and wondering how everyone else manages to keep the house clean and tidy when you can't, because I was that person when I had my firstborn and my second child still, so wondering why on earth my house looked as it did and I couldn't invite people round for a play date the following day. No, I had to have several weeks notice so that I could start tidying the house, and I'd have to take a whole day off the day before anyone turned up so that I could spend hours tidying and sorting and cleaning. And why was I like that? But other people didn't seem to be. And it dawned on me eventually, funnily enough, watching YouTube videos, listening to people talk about stuff, and it suddenly occurred to me, it wasn't that I was struggling to clean my house, it was that I had too much stuff in my house to clean around. I couldn't just simply clean my house. I had to tidy a gazillion things before I did so. And starting on that journey of decluttering has been a massive benefit to me in my life. Looking back now, I can see how I've always had just too much stuff. When I was a kid, I had too much stuff. When I was a teenager, I had too much stuff. When I moved out into my first flat, I had way too much stuff. When I moved into the house I currently am in now, I bought too much stuff with me, and then I continued to fill it with stuff. I think that I have, like a lot of people, always had the tendency to fill every square inch of anywhere that I have lived. The idea of having empty drawers and empty cupboards is totally alien, and having empty surfaces was just, a strange concept. Buy another photo frame, buy a vase, buy a trinket, put that here, put that there, until before you know it, your house is full to the brim. And then you have a child and they need so much stuff, and you have no more time to keep on top of the stuff that you had. And before you know it, you're in over your head, you're massively overwhelmed, and you're embarrassed to invite anyone over. I am nowhere near at my peaceful point in the house journey of decluttering, but I am convinced that I will get there. This challenge, decluttering 1,000 items in 30 days, has been so unbelievably helpful, But also what it's shown me is that 1,000 items, yes, it makes a difference. Yes, it's helpful, but it's not quite the massive number that I thought it was. There are some rooms in the house I look at now and I think, yep, I can see the impact. We're starting to get there. And there are some rooms in my house I look at and I think, have I even achieved anything here? And I guess it's because, in part, I get used to the spaces after they've been decluttered, and I start to adjust my hopes and expectations for them. So initially, after I've decluttered a room, I can really see that impact. But as I get used to that, I start to think I can do more here, and I definitely feel like I can do more in my house. So now that we are 7 months through this decluttering journey, I like to think that as I get to the end of November of this year, I can get to the point where the house is feeling much more peaceful. I love the idea of doing a comparison video, a walkthrough of my house at the very end of November, very start of December of this year, and comparing that to what my house was like at the exact same time last year, when I picked up my phone, walked through my house and showed you all exactly what it looked like at that time. No tidying, no cleaning up, no throwing things in cupboards, no pretending like I lived any differently. And just laying out my life raw, open and honest, and making a declaration that I was going to change, that I was going to declutter every single day until my house felt calmer. I did find my watch. I believe it was day 10 of decluttering. I didn't actually find it myself, my eldest did, but I like to think that in my declutters I had disturbed it at least. And it was such a relief. We have found so many more things during the decluttering, and that has been such a wonderful thing. Sometimes they are silly things, sometimes they are massively important things, including a pin badge, a button badge that my mother made me for my wedding day. It was using a button badge that she had in what she calls a swapsies box from when she was a child. So it was a thing when she was a kid, everyone had a little tin with treasured possessions and they could swap them with their friends. And that is something she had in her swapsies box. And the little glass came off the front of this button badge. She put a tiny bit of tartan fabric in, which is my husband's family tartan. Sealed up the button badge, and I had it pinned to the back of my wedding dress on my wedding day. And I had misplaced it. I didn't know where it was. And it could have been lost forever for all I knew. I hadn't seen it in years. So to stumble upon it when I was decluttering brought me so much joy and relief. You don't realise kind of how these things impact you until you find them again. And it seems like a silly thing, but it's so important to me. It's something that I want to keep for the rest of my days. It's important to me because it was made with so much love. It comes with so many memories. It was so important to my mum, and yet she gave it to me. And I know that one day when I'm older, I will look back on it with even more fondness than I have now. Early on in the decluttering process, we also found my husband's car key. It had been missing for a couple of weeks, and we found it in the toy kitchen. It was in the microwave section of the toy kitchen. We found money, we found notes of money in our coffee table, which one of our kiddos had clearly shoved in. But we found all sorts of missing toys, funny things we had completely forgotten about. Things in our loft that we had forgotten were there, which had, because they had been left in the loft for so long, become unusable to anyone else. And this was a really tough one for somebody like me who likes to recycle as much as possible. Realising that if you had just decluttered an item earlier, it would have been able to be enjoyed by somebody else, but because you held onto it for so long, you have effectively ruined it. This happened a few times with a few different items which had been forgotten about, shoved to the back of cupboards, put in the loft, put in the shed, put in outside storage, become broken, beyond repair, damaged to the point where they could not be given to anyone else. So this has also helped me just in my general outlook when it comes to decluttering for the future. If there are items that I am considering putting in the loft for a long stretch of time, isn't it better just to declutter them? And then if I find I need them again, I can always buy them. There's very little that you cannot replace. I've come to the realization that decluttering is likely to be a lifelong journey for me, and that if I do want to keep on top of the house, then I'm going to need to regularly declutter it. Keep revisiting areas, rooms, categories of stuff time and time again, because I absolutely find that when I go through things a second, third, fourth time, I am able to part with more and more items. Sometimes it just takes me a little bit of time to get my head around parting with an item before I am ready to let it go. I really wish that I was one of those people who could just like ruthlessly declutter an area. I wish that this was a 1 month process for me where I could Marie Kondo my home. I could lay everything out, half the amount of items, and then call myself a minimalist. But I am not that person, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to call myself a minimalist. I'm also not sure that it's something that I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to get to a point where I am sitting in my house, I look around, and I feel way more at peace. And I'm sure that will come in time, just generally as the kids grow older and they need less things and they leave home, etc., etc. But I want to experience that while they're still young, because I've realized as I've been decluttering that the less stuff that we have, the more time we have for each other. The more time that we have to play games in the evening, the more time we have to bake cakes, the more time we have to go to the park, make memories and have fun. The kids don't need that many toys. I could probably halve the amount of toys that we have and they would still have more than enough. But toys are a topic which is tricky. It's a really difficult skill for kids to learn to declutter. And if you're a grown up like me who's only really learned that decluttering is so important in life in the last 5 years, then you're also going to find it hard to part with things that maybe you didn't have as much of when you were younger. And I don't want you getting out your violins for me, because I had plenty when I was a kid. And I would go so far as to say I also had more than enough. But still, I think we look at what we had and we want to give our kids more. I find that when I look at my friends, every time it gets to somebody's birthday or Christmas time especially, you see the pictures of people's Easter baskets for their kids, the Halloween hauls, the Christmas presents, the birthday presents, the piles and piles and piles of stuff. And I was absolutely one of those people who thought that more is more. And now I'm starting to see that in many ways, less is more. For my boys' birthdays this year, I had got them 3 main presents and no other little bits and bobs. 3 main presents and some of them were, bigger presents. My eldest had a guitar. He had a hedgewig owl, and he had a big tub of sweets. Actually, he had 4 things because he also had a 4-pack of Dr. Peppers, which he was very excited about. So those are his presents from mum and dad. And my middle child had 3 presents because his thread present was, a combined value similar to the smaller bits that my eldest had. So they had 3 or 4 items, and then they had presents from their grandparents and their aunties and uncles. They had parties and their friends bought gifts. And I've learned over the years that they will get overwhelmed by stuff, especially if they're having that full class party in the first year of school, as my middle child had this year. I was so grateful that many of the parents gave money or vouchers or practical presents like pajamas, which was so useful. My son absolutely adores his Minions pajamas that one of his friends gave him for his birthday. Like, they are his favourites. We got an awesome board game that we can all play together. So I'm loving that. I think that parents are becoming more used to and more aware of stuff, that they are thinking a bit more when it comes to parties. I always used to think that putting money in a card for a kid's birthday party was a cop-out. I always went to great lengths to think about the gift that they would like and choose it and buy it in advance. And then I'm realizing now that sometimes a mix is good. Kids love to get money and buy something with it. So just today I have purchased something for my boys. I know we're talking about decluttering, and then I'm talking about buying something. But yes, sometimes we do buy things. My boys had been taken by their dad to the football stadium for the team they support, and they've just had the best experience. My husband talks about it and how he went when he was a youngster, and absolutely like the memory of his first trip to the football ground, how amazing it was. And nowadays they do tours and you get like amazing experience. It's not just a wander around, but there's an ability to get involved. And the boys were able to experience being part of the media centre, getting in front of a mic and commentating or answering questions like they would immediately after a match. And this is very exciting to them. And they set up games in order to recreate this, getting smart jackets and dressing up, putting a tie on, setting up their media centre on the dining room table, which was so cute. They had their stand-in mics, which were perfectly acceptable for the game, but not quite right. I've been asked so many times for a microphone which actually makes their voice louder, something they had experienced today. They both had money from their birthdays in April and June that they haven't spent yet, because I'm also keen we don't have to rush out and spend money immediately. We can save money for holidays and for when something comes up that we think about that we really, really want. And this was one of those items they both really, really wanted. So we went on to Amazon, we found a karaoke set which had 2 black mics which looked very, very similar to the ones they had used in the media centre at the football stadium. And it came with a little speaker so that they can hear themselves, their booming voices, and we've ordered that. Jointly, they've used joint birthday money to purchase this gift, and it means a lot to them. So, sometimes we're choosing something and we're buying something, but it's something that we are spending a bit more time thinking about. So yes, there's my kind of green light. If you're going to kids' parties, chuck some money in a card. Don't worry about it. They'll really love getting money from some people. Some will buy presents, some will give money, and that mix is really, really nice. Also, just during the course of this decluttering, we've been thinking a lot more about presents and about Christmases and upcoming events where we're bound to get more things into the house. And I talked in the past about my very generous mum. She spends a lot of time thinking about the presents that the kids will like. She'll set a budget around Christmas time for each of the grandchildren, and she will buy something. Normally we'll suggest something from the list that my kids have put together so that they have something that we know that they really, really do want. And she will go and find something that fits in that category, that meets that, wish that they have. And then if that doesn't meet the budget that she set for herself, then she will buy something else. Maybe it's one thing or 2 things. And we've had a chat recently about this, and I've asked that when it comes to Christmas this year, she buy the item that she really wants to get for the kid, and it's one item, and then if there's any money left over, she puts that in their bank account rather than getting multiple presents. I think that learning lessons like this will really help us going forward, and having the confidence to have that conversation with family members in a polite and delicate way. For some people, their love language is absolutely gifts. And I will say that to some degree, my love language is giving gifts. I love to give thoughtful gifts. I like to make people happy, but also I am more mindful now myself of what I'm giving and whether it's really useful, whether it's something people will want, or do they want an experience, or can I do something for them that they need doing? Because my love language, my main love language, is absolutely acts of service. I love to do things for people that are helpful. And if I could, I would do decluttering and cleaning for people as my actual full-time job. I watch creators like Auri Katerina, Clean with B, and also Mac as well on Midwest Magic Cleaning, and I absolutely adore them. I often say to my husband that I wish I had the guts to just go for it and make that my actual job. But equally, I love my job. And doing cleaning and decluttering is so far removed from what I do for my day job as a lawyer. I mostly work within the insurance industry. I work within Parliament a lot. I do a lot of lobbying, and it's really interesting. It's a fascinating job. I'm so lucky to do it. I've got quite senior in my job. I've actually recently been told that I've got a promotion that I've been working towards for over a year now, and that will be effective from September. So I can't bring myself to say what my new job title will be. I almost feel like I'm jinxing it until it is official. But it's really, really super exciting. And yet, even though I have the gift of an awesome job, which not many people have, and it is really a well-paid job. It's definitely way above average. It's more than I thought I would be able to earn when I was a youngster. It's given me the ability to have a comfortable life and regular holidays, and be able to say yes to a lot of the things that we want to do as a family. But at the same time thinking, gosh, could I be somebody who helps to really transform somebody's life? Would be absolutely amazing. I don't know what it is, but I feel really called to it. But at the same time, massively conflicted, because it would be me giving up a fantastic job, a job that I've worked so hard for, and a job that gives me so much satisfaction and also comfort, and giving up that reliable job, secure job, that's the word I need, security. Giving up that security for something which is completely unsecure. And I wouldn't know if I could even make the same amount of money as I do right now. But I am rambling. I also have a fly which won't leave me alone, or won't leave the window behind me alone. So apologise if there's lots of buzzing in the background of this video as I tell you my experience of this decluttering. But I would be really, really interested to hear from you about your experiences of clutter, of decluttering, where you're at in life. Are you in the trenches? Are you at a stage where the kids are older and the house is calmer, and you're out the other side of it all? And how long did it take you to get to that point where your house felt calmer, if indeed you're at that point? I would be really interested to hear from you. And what do you think of all of the mad ideas that I have for my fictional alternative career path? I always say, that there's still time for it as well. I feel like with this channel, as I work towards sort of slowly building it, that maybe in 10 years time I can retire from my job as a lawyer and pursue my random dreams, or perhaps that will never happen, and it will just be something that I do just for funsies when I can, helping my family, helping my friends. And I'd love to do a bit more of that. I have some friends who have said they have various projects, decluttering projects, that they could do with help with. So that feels like something which would be like really awesome to pursue and make the time for. But until then, I intend to work at hushing my house. So hushing room by room. I've done the kitchen and that made a massive impact. Can't wait to get started on the bedrooms and the rest of the house and do that tour, that walkthrough at the end of November, beginning of December time, and we can compare how my house is now to what it was when I started this journey again in earnest at the beginning of December of last year. It has been an absolute whirlwind, but I've learned so much, I've tackled so much, and I feel like I am on the right path now. I can absolutely see me getting to the point where the house just feels so much calmer. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Your support has meant so very much to me. I will see you in the next one. Bye.